Subscribe to Storylab. Now, let's begin this one. The desert sun beat down on Copper Ridge like a hammer on an anvil. Rex Rollins sat on his porch, watching the heat shimmer off the cracked asphalt of Route 89. He'd moved here 8 months ago, seeking the kind of silence only empty spaces could provide. After 23 years as a federal prosecutor, after putting away 14 crime bosses and dismantling 3 major trafficking operations, after testifying before Congress twice and surviving 2 assassination attempts, he'd earned his quiet. His daughter, Ashley, pulled into the gravel driveway in her old pickup, dust trailing behind her like a ghost. She was 19, home for the summer before her sophomore year at Arizona State. She had her mother's dark hair and fierce intelligence, but she had Rex's steel spine and unwillingness to back down. "Dad, I'm heading to the diner," she called out, grabbing her apron from the passenger seat. "Linda asked me to cover the evening shift." Rex nodded, sipping his coffee. Ashley had taken a waitressing job at Lou's Diner to earn spending money, insisting she didn't want to rely on him for everything. He admired that about her. She was independent, strong-willed, nothing like the spoiled children of other powerful people he'd known in Washington. "Be safe," he said. "It's Copper Ridge, Dad. Nothing ever happens here." That was precisely why he'd chosen it. A town of 8,000 people, 300 miles from anywhere that mattered, nestled in a valley where the law moved slowly and the gossip moved fast. He'd bought a modest ranch house under an LLC, paid cash, kept his head down. Here, he was just Rex, the quiet guy who'd moved in from back east. Nobody knew about the federal courtrooms, the mob trials, the witness protection relocations he'd orchestrated. Nobody knew what he was capable of. The Hernandez family ran Copper Ridge the way old Spanish land grants once controlled the Southwest. Absolutely. Sheriff Morris Hernandez had worn the badge for 16 years. His brother was the county commissioner, and his nephew worked as the deputy. The mayor, Gerald Webster, had been Morris's college roommate. It was a closed loop of power, impenetrable to outsiders. Morris's son, Darren, was 22 and useless. He'd failed out of 2 colleges, wrecked 3 trucks his father bought him, and spent most nights drinking at the Cactus Saloon, where he'd grope waitresses and start fights he couldn't finish. Morris always made those problems disappear. Evidence vanished, witnesses forgot what they'd seen, and complaints died in filing cabinets. Ashley had been working at Lou's Diner for 6 weeks when Darren first came in. He sat at the counter, ordered coffee he didn't drink, and stared at her with the entitled hunger of someone who'd never been told no. "You're new," he'd said. "I've been here 6 weeks. New to me." He grinned, showing teeth too white for someone who drank as much as he did. "I'm Darren Hernandez." Ashley had heard the name. Everyone warned her about the Hernandez family when she'd started. "Don't cross them. Don't reject them. Don't even look at them wrong." "Nice to meet you," she said politely, then moved to the next customer. Darren came back the next night, and the next. He started leaving excessive tips, $50 on a $7 check. He asked her out 4 times. She declined politely each time, citing school, work, tiredness. On the 5th attempt, he'd cornered her by the kitchen. "You think you're too good for me? I think I'm not interested." His face had flushed red. "Do you know who my father is?" "I do." "That's not relevant to whether I want to date you." That night, Darren went home and complained to Morris that some uppity waitress had disrespected him. Morris, who'd been drinking bourbon and nursing old resentments about outsiders moving into his county, decided to teach the girl a lesson about knowing her place. The next evening, Ashley was closing the diner when Morris's patrol car pulled up outside. He walked in with Deputy Frankie Anderson, his nephew. "Ashley Rollins?" "Yes, sir. You're under arrest for possession of methamphetamine with intent to distribute." Ashley's face went white. "What? I've never touched drugs in my life. We received a tip that you've been dealing out of this diner. You're coming with us." "This is insane. You can search my car, my locker. You won't find anything." Morris grabbed her wrist, twisting it behind her back harder than necessary. "You have the right to remain silent. I suggest you use it." They dragged her out in handcuffs while Lou, the diner owner, watched helplessly from behind the register. The entire evening crowd saw it. By morning, everyone in Copper Ridge would know that Rex Rollins' daughter was a drug dealer. Except she wasn't. Morris had planted a bag of meth in her locker during the afternoon, before his shift started. It was an old trick, one he'd used a dozen times on people who needed reminding about how things worked in his county. Rex got the call at 9:30 that night. Lou's voice was shaking. "Rex, I'm so sorry. The sheriff arrested Ashley. They took her to county lockup. They're saying drugs, but that's impossible, Rex. I know that girl. She wouldn't." Rex was already moving toward his truck. "What exactly did they say?" "Meth. Possession with intent to distribute." Morris claimed someone tipped him off. "But Rex, I've worked with her for 6 weeks. There's no way. This is about Darren. He came in yesterday, and she turned him down again. He was angry when he left." Rex's jaw tightened. 23 years prosecuting criminals had taught him to recognize a setup when he heard one. "I'll handle it." He drove to the Copper Ridge County Sheriff's Department, a squat concrete building on the edge of town. The night deputy, a young kid named Billy Rios, looked up nervously when Rex walked in. "I'm here for my daughter, Ashley Rollins." "Sir, she's been processed, and I want to see Sheriff Hernandez." Now, Morris emerged from his office, thumbs hooked in his belt, a smirk playing at his lips. He'd been expecting this visit. "Mr. Rollins, sorry about your daughter. Drugs are a real problem in this county." Rex's voice was calm, deadly calm. "You and I both know she doesn't have anything to do with drugs. Evidence says otherwise. Found a bag of meth in her locker at the diner. Convenient." Morris stepped closer, his voice dropping. "Let me explain something to you, since you're new here. This is my county. I've been keeping order here for 16 years. Sometimes people need to learn respect. Your daughter disrespected my son. Now she's learning. Release her." Morris laughed. "Or what? You'll sue me? Good luck. Judge Blackwell is my wife's cousin. You'll lose. Or maybe you'll just disappear into the desert like other troublemakers. It's a big desert, Mr. Rollins. Easy to get lost out there." Rex looked at his watch. "You have 25 minutes to release my daughter." Morris's smirk widened. "Or what? 25 minutes. Get the hell out of my office before I arrest you too." Rex turned and walked out. Billy Rios watched him go, something in the man's bearing making him uneasy. Morris watched too, then pulled out his phone and called Mayor Gerald Webster. "Gerald, we might have a problem. That Rollins guy whose daughter I arrested, he just threatened me." Gerald sighed. "Morris, was this about Darren again?" The girl needed to learn respect. "Christ. Okay, I'll make some calls. We'll handle it. Nobody threatens you in our county." Morris leaned back in his chair, satisfied. He'd dealt with angry fathers before. They all thought they were tough until they realized they were alone against an entire system. He'd make sure Rollins understood that by morning. Outside, Rex sat in his truck and made a single phone call. A man answered on the second ring. "Simon," Rex said quietly. "I need you to make a call." Simon Seymour sat in his office in the Arizona State Capitol, 300 miles away in Phoenix. As the governor's chief of staff, he'd worked with Rex Rollins 5 years ago when Rex had been prosecuting a corruption case that stretched from the Mexican cartels into Arizona's state legislature. Rex had been careful, thorough, and devastating. He'd torn apart a network that had been untouchable for a decade. Simon had never forgotten the favor. "What do you need?" Simon asked. Rex explained the situation in 3 precise sentences. Simon's expression hardened. "Give me 15 minutes, Simon said. 12 minutes later, Morris's personal cell phone rang. The caller ID showed a Phoenix number he didn't recognize. He answered anyway. "Sheriff Hernandez? Who's this?" "This is Simon Seymour, Chief of Staff to Governor Richardson. I'm calling about Ashley Rollins, currently in your custody." Morris frowned. How did the governor's office even know about a small-town arrest? "With all due respect, sir, this is a local matter. The father of the girl you imprisoned is Rex Rollins." Morris's stomach dropped. The name meant nothing at first, then recognition clicked into place. Rex Rollins, the federal prosecutor, the one who'd taken down the Molina cartel, the one who'd put 3 U.S. senators in prison, the one whose testimony had reformed federal RICO statutes. "Sheriff, I suggest you release that girl immediately and pray that Mr. Rollins is feeling merciful. Because if he's not, and if he makes a phone call to any of his former colleagues at the Justice Department, Your entire department will be under federal investigation by morning. Do I make myself clear? Morris's hand was shaking. Yes, sir. You have 10 minutes. The line went dead. Morris stood frozen for a moment, then ran to the cells. Billy, release the Rollins girl. Now, drop all charges. Lost paperwork, bad tip, whatever. Get her out. Billy Rios scrambled for the keys. Sheriff, what happened? Just do it. Ashley emerged from the holding cell, confused and angry. Morris couldn't meet her eyes. There's been a mistake. You're free to go. No charges. A mistake. Ashley's voice was ice. You planted evidence on me. Miss Rollins, please. Stay away from me. And tell your son to stay away from me. She walked out into the night where Rex was waiting by his truck. She'd never seen her father look quite like this. Perfectly calm, perfectly still, like a blade waiting to strike. You okay? He asked quietly. I'm fine. She paused. Who are you, Dad? Let's go home. We'll talk. They drove back through the desert night, and Rex told her everything. About his years in federal prosecution, about the cases and the enemies and the reasons they'd moved here. Ashley listened without interrupting, her respect for her father deepening with every word. So that's why he released me so fast, she finally said. You made a call. One call. That's all it took. What happens now? Rex's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Now I make sure this never happens to anyone else. Morris Hernandez didn't sleep that night. He sat in his office until dawn, drinking cheap bourbon from his desk drawer, replaying the phone call from the governor's chief of staff. 23 years in law enforcement, 16 as sheriff, and he'd never felt this kind of fear. Rex Rollins wasn't some civilian he could intimidate. He was a federal prosecutor who'd destroyed organizations more powerful than Morris could imagine. But Morris wasn't stupid. He'd survived this long by being careful. By morning, he'd made a decision. He'd apologized to Rollins, smoothed things over, and hoped the man just wanted to be left alone. It was the smart play. Darren showed up at the sheriff's department around 10, hungover and angry. Dad, what the hell? You let that bitch go. Morris grabbed his son by the shirt and shoved him against the wall. Shut your mouth. You have no idea what you've done. What are you talking about? Her father is Rex Rollins, the federal prosecutor. He put away the Molina cartel, 3 senators, and God knows how many others. And you had me arrest his daughter over your hurt feelings? Darren paled. Even he'd heard of Rex Rollins. The newspapers had called him the Hammer for how thoroughly he destroyed criminal enterprises. I didn't know. Get out. Go home. Stay away from that girl. If I hear you've gone within 100 feet of her, I'll arrest you myself. After Darren left, Morris composed himself and drove out to Rex's ranch. He rehearsed the apology in his head, planning to strike a balance between remorse and pride. He'd explain it was a misunderstanding, offer some excuse about bad information, and hopefully this would end. Rex was working in his garage when Morris's patrol car pulled up. He didn't stop what he was doing, just glanced over as Morris approached. Mr. Rollins, I came to apologize. Last night was a mistake. Bad intel, overeager policing. Your daughter is a fine young woman, and I regret. Stop, Rex said quietly. I know exactly what happened. Your son was rejected, and you decided to abuse your authority to punish my daughter. Don't insult me with lies. Morris's jaw tightened. Look, I'm trying to make this right. How many others? What? Rex set down his tools and faced Morris directly. How many other people have you done this to? How many times have you planted evidence, falsified reports, made people disappear into your jail because they crossed you or your family? I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. You threatened to bury me in the desert. That's not the threat of a good cop. That's the threat of someone who's done it before. Morris's face flushed red. You need to be careful, Mr. Rollins. Yes, you made a phone call and scared me. But I've got friends too. The mayor, the county commissioner, the judge, this is still my county. You want to live here peacefully? Then drop this and move on. Rex studied him for a long moment. Get off my property. Mr. Rollins. Now. Morris left, his apology curdling into renewed anger. Who did Rollins think he was? So he'd been some hotshot prosecutor back east. This was different. This was local power built over decades. rooted in relationships and favors and blood. If Rollins wanted a war, Morris would give him one. Rex watched the patrol car disappear down the road. He'd seen Morris's type 1,000 times. Small-time tyrants who believed their little kingdoms were untouchable. They always made the same mistake. They underestimated their opponents. Rex spent the next 2 days talking to people in Copper Ridge. He started at Lou's Diner, where the owner was still shaken by Ashley's arrest. "Lou, level with me. How long has the sheriff been running things this way?" Lou glanced around nervously, even though they were alone. "Long as I can remember. You don't cross the Hernandez family in this town." "Who has he targeted before?" "There was a guy named Pablo Glenn, ran the auto shop. Accused him of running a chop shop. Shut him down. Pablo swore it was because he refused to let Darren drive drunk after a party. Couldn't prove anything, though. Where's Pablo now?" "Left town. Most people who stand up to Morris end up leaving." Rex talked to a lawyer named Judith Walters, who'd practiced in Copper Ridge for 30 years. She was retiring next month, finally willing to speak freely. "Rex, I've seen Morris fabricate charges against 17 people that I know of. I could never prove it because the evidence always checked out. Planted, I'm sure, but legally obtained. Judge Blackwell rubber stamps everything Morris brings him. The whole system is corrupt. Why haven't you reported this?" Judith laughed bitterly. "To who? The county commissioner is Morris's brother. The mayor is his college buddy. The state police? They defer to local jurisdiction. I tried going to report her once, 10 years ago. The story died before it was published." Someone made a call. Rex nodded slowly. This was deeper than he'd thought. Morris hadn't just been abusing his power occasionally. He'd built an entire structure of corruption. That evening, Ashley found her father in his office, surrounded by notes and documents. She'd seen him like this before, back when he was working cases. "You're investigating him," she said. "I am. Dad, maybe we should just leave? Move somewhere else. You retired for a reason." Rex looked up at her. "When I was prosecuting the Molina cartel, they threatened me. Said they'd kill you and your mother if I didn't back off. I didn't back off. I put every one of them in prison for life because they thought they could threaten my family and get away with it. This is different. This is small-town politics. It's the same. Morris Hernandez thinks he can threaten and hurt people because he wears a badge. He's wrong, and he's going to learn that the hard way." Ashley sat down. "What are you planning?" "I'm going to do what I always did. Build a case, find the evidence, and take him down. But this time it's personal." Over the next week, Rex worked methodically. He discovered that Morris had been sheriff during a period when 14 people had been arrested on drug charges, all of them outsiders or people who'd had conflicts with the Hernandez family. He found records of property seizures that enriched Morris and his relatives. He uncovered a pattern of excessive force complaints that had been buried. But Morris was careful. Every action had legal cover. Every abuse was documented just well enough to pass scrutiny. Taking him down through normal channels would be nearly impossible in a county where he controlled the entire justice system. Rex needed something more. Something that would expose Morris so thoroughly that even his powerful friends couldn't protect him. The opportunity came from an unexpected source. Terry Carroll walked into Lou's Diner where Ashley was working the lunch shift. He was a photographer for the Copper Ridge Gazette, young and idealistic, the kind of journalist who still believed in exposing truth. He'd heard about Ashley's arrest and release, heard the rumors about why it had happened. "I want to write a story," Terry said quietly. "About the sheriff. About what he did to you." Ashley shook her head. "It'll never get published. The sheriff has connections. Not if I take it to the Phoenix papers. They're outside his reach." Ashley looked at the young reporter, seeing the determination in his eyes. "Talk to my father." That evening, Terry met Rex at the ranch. Rex was initially skeptical. He'd seen too many journalists sensationalize stories or get details wrong, but Terry was different. He'd been documenting Morris's abuses for 2 years, quietly collecting evidence he couldn't publish locally. "I have photographs of 3 arrests where excessive force was clearly used. I have interviews with 7 people who claim Morris planted evidence on them. I have financial records showing Morris's net worth has increased by $400,000 over 5 years on a sheriff's salary." Rex studied the materials. "This is good work. But it's not enough. It's all circumstantial. You need something concrete. Something undeniable. Like what? Rex thought for a moment. Like a recording of Morris admitting to his crimes. Or catching him in the act of planting evidence. How would we do that? A slow smile crossed Rex's face. We give him a target he can't resist. The plan was simple but dangerous. Rex would publicly challenge Morris, pushing him to retaliate in a way that could be documented. It meant making himself a target, drawing Morris into a confrontation where the sheriff's true nature would be exposed. This could backfire, Terry warned. Morris could actually hurt you. Let him try, Rex said calmly. I've dealt with cartels and mob bosses. A small-town sheriff doesn't scare me. The Copper Ridge Town Council meeting took place every first Tuesday of the month in the community center. Attendance was usually sparse, a dozen people at most, mostly retirees with nothing better to do. But this Tuesday, 43 people showed up, drawn by rumors that something interesting was going to happen. Rex Rollins had requested time to speak. Morris sat in the front row next to Mayor Gerald Webster, both men radiating confidence. Whatever Rollins wanted to say, it wouldn't matter. The council was packed with their people. Nothing would come of this. Rex approached the podium wearing a simple button-down shirt and jeans, looking like any other ranch owner. But when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of 2 decades in federal courtrooms. My name is Rex Rollins. I moved here 8 months ago, hoping for a quiet life. Instead, I've discovered a systematic pattern of corruption in this county's law enforcement. Sheriff Hernandez arrested my daughter on fabricated drug charges because she rejected his son's advances. When I confronted him, he threatened to bury me in the desert. Rex paused, letting that sink in. That's not law enforcement. That's organized crime with badges. The room went silent. Morris's face turned red. Gerald Webster stood up. Mr. Rollins, those are serious accusations. Do you have any proof? I do. And I'll be providing it to the Arizona Attorney General's office, the FBI, and the U.S. Attorney for the District of Arizona. I spent 23 years as a federal prosecutor. I know how to build a case. And Sheriff Hernandez has given me plenty to work with. Morris shot to his feet. This is slander. You come into our town, and you think you can. I can present evidence of 17 cases where you fabricated charges against innocent people. I can show a pattern of property seizures that enriched you and your family. I can document excessive force, witness intimidation, and abuse of power. Your little kingdom is over, Sheriff. The room erupted in whispers. Morris looked around, seeing doubt in faces that had always supported him. His authority was being challenged publicly, and he was losing. You want a war? Morris said, his voice shaking with rage. You'll get one. Looking forward to it. Rex replied calmly. Then he walked out. Terry Carroll had recorded the entire exchange on video. That night, it was uploaded to YouTube and sent to every major news outlet in Arizona. By morning, the story was everywhere. Retired federal prosecutor accuses a small-town sheriff of corruption. Morris was cornered, and cornered animals were dangerous. 2 nights later, Rex's ranch house burned. The fire started around midnight. Rex and Ashley barely escaped, fleeing through the back door as flames consumed the structure. The volunteer fire department took 40 minutes to arrive, 20 minutes longer than it should have taken. By then, the house was a total loss. Morris arrived at the scene in his patrol car, making a show of concern. Terrible accident, Mr. Rollins. These old electrical systems can be dangerous. Rex stood watching his home burn, his face expressionless. It wasn't an accident. You have evidence of arson? I have evidence of you. Terry Carroll had been watching the house from a distance, as Rex had asked him to. He'd photographed 2 men approaching the property at 11:45 p.m., men he later identified as Frankie Anderson, Morris's nephew and deputy, and another county employee named Louise Sherman. He had photos of them spreading accelerant. He had photos of them lighting the fire. The photographs were immediately sent to the Arizona Attorney General's office, the FBI, and uploaded to a secure cloud server. Copies went to every major newspaper. Morris had finally made a mistake that couldn't be explained away. By dawn, FBI agents were en route to Copper Ridge. The Attorney General's office issued a statement. An investigation was being launched into the Copper Ridge Sheriff's Department. Morris Hernandez was suspended pending the outcome. A temporary state police presence would maintain order in the county. Morris knew he was finished. All his connections, all his power, meant nothing against federal investigators with photographic evidence of arson. He sat in his house, drinking bourbon and holding his service weapon, considering his options. Mayor Gerald Webster called. "Morris, what the hell were you thinking? Burning his house?" He challenged me. "I had to. You had to destroy yourself? The FBI is coming, Morris." "The FBI? Do you understand what that means? They're going to tear apart everything. Every case you've ever worked, every arrest, every seizure. They'll find it all. Then we fight." "No, you're on your own. I can't be associated with this anymore. The council is voting tomorrow to request your permanent removal." The line went dead. Morris realized, too late, that he confused fear with respect. His entire system of power had been built on intimidation, but when challenged by someone unafraid, it had collapsed in days. Darren found his father in the garage, drunk and desperate. "Dad, what do we do?" Morris looked at his son with disgust. "This started because you couldn't take no for an answer. Because I raised you to think you could have anything you wanted. Now look at us. We can run. Mexico or run where? You think Rex Rollins doesn't have contacts everywhere? He prosecuted cartels, Darren. He has friends in law enforcement across 2 continents. There's nowhere to run." Rex and Ashley were staying at a hotel in town, their belongings reduced to what they'd carried out during the fire. Ashley sat on the bed, still processing everything. "Dad, he burned our house down. I know, he could have killed us. But he didn't. And now he's given me exactly what I needed. Undeniable proof of his criminal behavior. Terry got it all on camera. Is this what you wanted? For him to attack us?" Rex sat down beside her. "I wanted justice. For you, for everyone he's hurt. Sometimes justice requires sacrifice. We've lost our home. We can rebuild. But Morris can't rebuild his life after this. That's the difference between us." The FBI arrived the next morning. Special Agent Mona Hilton led the investigation, a sharp woman in her 40s who'd worked with Rex years ago on a racketeering case. She greeted him with professional warmth. "Rex, I heard you'd retired. Should have known you'd find trouble anyway. Trouble found me. Let's make sure it regrets that. Show me what you have." Rex handed over his compiled evidence. The 17 suspect arrests, the financial irregularities, witness statements, Terry's photographs, and his own recordings of Morris's threats. Mona reviewed it with growing anger. "This is a RICO case waiting to happen. Sheriff, mayor, judge, they've been running this county like a criminal enterprise. Can you make it stick with this?" "Absolutely. Hernandez is looking at 15 to 20 years minimum. The others will fall like dominoes once they start flipping on each other to save themselves." Morris was arrested 3 days later, not by his own deputies, but by FBI agents who read him his rights in front of the courthouse. Charges included arson, conspiracy to commit arson, falsifying evidence, abuse of power, witness intimidation, and racketeering. Bail was set at $5 million, which Morris couldn't make. Mayor Gerald Webster was arrested the following day. Judge Noel Blackwell resigned and hired a lawyer. County Commissioner Carlos Hernandez, Morris's brother, was also taken into custody. The entire corrupt structure collapsed in a week. Copper Ridge was suddenly without leadership. The state appointed a temporary administrator and brought in state police to maintain order. The community was divided. Some people grateful that Morris's reign was over, others angry that their local control had been usurped by outsiders. Rex didn't care about public opinion. He cared that Ashley was safe, that Morris would face justice, and that no one else would suffer the sheriff's abuse. But as federal prosecutors began building their case, they discovered something that Rex hadn't known. Morris's corruption went deeper than anyone suspected. He wasn't just abusing power for ego and money. He was connected to something larger. Special Agent Mona Hilton came to Rex's hotel room with a folder of documents. "Rex, we've been analyzing Morris's financial records. He's been receiving payments from an offshore account for 6 years. Significant payments, $30,000 every month." Rex frowned. "For what?" "We're not sure yet, but the account traces back to a trucking company that's a known front for the Sinaloa cartel. Morris has been on their payroll. Rex's expression darkened. He's been facilitating drug trafficking through Copper Ridge. It looks that way. The town's location makes it a perfect corridor. Remote, controlled law enforcement, easy access to multiple highways. Morris wasn't just a corrupt sheriff. He was enabling cartel operations. Does he know you found this? Not yet. We're being careful. If the cartel thinks Morris is about to flip, they might try to silence him. Rex nodded slowly. This changed everything. Morris wasn't just a small-town tyrant. He was part of an international criminal network, and the cartel wouldn't let him testify without a fight. This was about to get much more dangerous. That night, as Rex lay awake in the hotel room, he thought about the path he'd chosen. He'd wanted a quiet life, but violence and corruption had found him anyway. It always did. Maybe that was his fate, to always be fighting, always bringing down criminals, never really at rest. But as he looked over at Ashley, sleeping peacefully despite everything they'd been through, he knew it was worth it. She deserved to live in a world where corrupt officials faced justice, where the powerful couldn't abuse the weak with impunity. And Rex Rollins would make sure she got that world, no matter what it cost him. The war with Morris Hernandez was only beginning. The Copper Ridge County Jail wasn't designed for high-profile prisoners. It had 12 cells, all of them visible from the main desk, all of them separated by bars that had been installed in 1987. Morris Hernandez sat in one of those cells, wearing an orange jumpsuit instead of a sheriff's uniform, contemplating the spectacular collapse of his entire life. 3 FBI agents rotated guard duty outside his cell, a precaution against cartel retaliation. Morris had been told he was a witness now, whether he liked it or not. The federal prosecutors wanted him to testify about his relationship with the Sinaloa cartel, detail their operations through Copper Ridge, and help dismantle their southwest corridor. Morris refused. He'd seen what happened to cartel informants. They died screaming. But refusing to cooperate meant facing every charge the FBI had compiled: racketeering, conspiracy, arson, corruption, drug trafficking. He was looking at life in prison without possibility of parole. Gerald Webster, the former mayor, made a different choice. He immediately hired a lawyer and agreed to cooperate fully. Within 72 hours, he was in protective custody, spilling everything he knew about Morris's arrangement with the cartel. According to Gerald, it had started 6 years ago when a cartel lieutenant named Eduardo Vasquez approached Morris with a simple proposition: look the other way while certain trucks passed through Copper Ridge and receive $30,000 monthly. Morris, already corrupt and confident in his control over the county, had agreed. The trucks carried cocaine, heroin, and methamphetamine from Mexico to distribution centers in Denver and Salt Lake City. Copper Ridge was perfectly positioned on Route 89, remote enough that traffic wasn't scrutinized, controlled enough that Morris could ensure safe passage. Morris had arrested exactly 3 people for drug trafficking in 6 years, all of them small-time dealers with no cartel connections. It made him look effective while keeping his real business hidden. The FBI estimated that over $300 million in narcotics had passed through his county during his arrangement with the Sinaloa cartel. When Eduardo Vasquez learned that Morris had been arrested and his operation exposed, he made 2 phone calls. The first was to his superiors, informing them that their Copper Ridge corridor was compromised. The second was to a specialist in Hermosillo, a man named Felix who handled problems with extreme prejudice. Felix crossed the border 3 days after Morris's arrest. His instructions were clear: eliminate Rex Rollins, the man who destroyed their operation. Make it painful. Make it memorable. Send a message that no one interferes with cartel business. Rex, meanwhile, was coordinating with the FBI to protect Ashley. The agents wanted to put her in protective custody, relocate her to a safe house far from Arizona. Rex refused. She stays with me, he told Agent Hilton. I can protect her better than a safe house. Rex, these are cartel assassins. They don't play by rules. Neither do I. Agent Hilton knew Rex's reputation. She'd seen him testify in court under death threats, seen him continue prosecutions even when his own life was in danger. He was either incredibly brave or completely insane. Maybe both. Fine. But we're providing protection. 2 agents with you at all times. Rex accepted this compromise. 2 agents, Bradley Dorsey and Gertrude Kelly, were assigned to shadow him and Ashley. Both were experienced, both had worked anti-cartel operations. They moved into the hotel floor with Rex and Ashley, maintaining constant vigilance. For 3 days, nothing happened. Then Felix made his move. The attempt came at dawn when Rex and Ashley were leaving the hotel for breakfast. A black SUV pulled up fast, side door sliding open, 2 men with automatic weapons emerging. It would have been over in seconds if Rex hadn't been trained to notice such things. The vehicle's approach, the way it slowed instead of passing, the body language of the occupants. "Down!" Rex shouted, pulling Ashley behind a concrete barrier. Agents Dorsey and Kelly reacted instantly, weapons drawn, returning fire. The gunfight lasted less than 30 seconds, bullets shattering glass and punching holes in metal. When it was over, one assassin was dead, the other wounded and fleeing in the SUV. Ashley was shaking, her ears ringing from the gunfire. Rex held her close, checking for injuries. "You okay?" "I'm okay. I'm okay." The wounded assassin was tracked down 2 blocks away, bleeding heavily from a chest wound. In custody, he refused to speak, knowing that talking meant death for his family in Mexico. But his phone contained communications that led the FBI to Felix, the specialist sent to kill Rex. Felix was smart. He'd already left Copper Ridge after the botched hit, disappearing into the Southwest's vast network of safe houses and cartel-controlled territories. But he'd be back. The cartel didn't accept failure. The attack changed the dynamic. This wasn't just about Morris Hernandez anymore. The Sinaloa cartel had made Rex Rollins a target, which meant this would escalate until either Rex was dead or the cartel's Arizona operations were destroyed. Rex chose to destroy their operations. He contacted former colleagues at the Justice Department, specifically at the Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force. He explained the situation, provided the evidence the FBI had gathered, and made a proposal. Launch a coordinated operation to dismantle the cartel's entire Southwest corridor, using Morris's case as the foundation. The task force agreed. Within a week, Operation Desert Hammer was organized. Federal agents from multiple agencies, FBI, DEA, ATF, Border Patrol, coordinated a sweep through Arizona, New Mexico, and California. They hit 17 cartel safe houses, arrested 43 members and associates, seized 6 tons of narcotics, and $12 million in cash. Eduardo Vasquez was arrested in Tucson, hiding in a warehouse filled with cocaine. He made a critical mistake, using the same burner phone number twice, allowing the NSA to triangulate his location. The cartel's response was swift and brutal. 3 witnesses connected to Operation Desert Hammer were killed in one night, 2 in protective custody, 1 in a maximum security facility. The message was clear: no one was safe. But Rex wasn't deterred. He'd spent his career fighting organizations that believed they were untouchable. The Sinaloa cartel was just another group of criminals who needed to learn they weren't above the law. He worked with the prosecutors, building the case against Morris and Eduardo. They needed Morris to testify, to solidify the charges, but Morris still refused. He sat in his cell, silent and defiant, believing he could outlast the pressure. Rex decided to visit him. The FBI initially denied the request. Too dangerous, too unpredictable. But Rex insisted. He wanted to look Morris in the eye one more time, to understand the man who'd tried to destroy his daughter's life. 2 agents escorted Rex into the county jail, now secured by federal personnel. Morris sat on his bunk, looking older than his 53 years. Prison had aged him quickly. "What do you want?" Morris asked flatly. "I want to understand why you did it. Why you became what you became." Morris laughed bitterly. "You don't understand anything. You come here with your federal connections and your righteousness, thinking you're better than everyone else. I don't think I'm better. I just think you're worse. This county was dying when I became sheriff. No jobs, no future, kids leaving as soon as they turned 18. Then the cartel approached me with an opportunity to bring money in, to keep things going. I took it. You could have brought legitimate business here. Instead, you chose trafficking. Easy for you to say. You had options. I had a dying town and a badge. I did what I had to do. Rex shook his head. No, you did what was easiest. And when that wasn't enough, you started abusing your authority, hurting innocent people. My daughter wasn't a threat to your operation. She was just a girl who said no to your son. But you couldn't let that stand because you'd spent so long believing you were untouchable. Morris said nothing. You're going to testify, Rex continued. You're going to tell the prosecutors everything about the cartel's operations. Because if you don't, you'll die in prison. And if you do, there's a chance you'll eventually see freedom again. They'll kill me if I testify. They'll try. But the federal government is better at protecting witnesses than the cartel is at killing them. I know. I've relocated hundreds of witnesses. Not one has been killed while under proper protection. And if I still refuse? Rex leaned closer. Then you'll rot in a cell for the rest of your life, knowing that your son, your brother, and everyone you claim to protect will face the same fate. Because the FBI is building cases against all of them. Gerald is testifying against you in them. You can either save yourself and possibly your family, or you can all go down together. Morris stared at him for a long moment, hatred and calculation warring in his eyes. Finally, he spoke. What do I get for cooperation? Reduced sentence, protective custody, a chance at parole in 20 years. My son, if he cooperates, he might avoid serious time. If he doesn't, he's looking at 15 years minimum. Morris closed his eyes. His entire empire, built over 16 years, was ashes. His legacy would be as a corrupt sheriff who enabled drug trafficking. But maybe, just maybe, he could salvage something from the wreckage. I'll testify, he said quietly. Rex nodded and stood. As he walked out, Morris called after him. Rollins? Your daughter. Tell her I'm sorry. Rex paused. Tell her yourself. At trial, the decision to cooperate broke the case wide open. Morris provided details about 17 cartel members operating in the Southwest, identified safe houses and distribution centers, explained the entire logistics network. Combined with Eduardo Vasquez's communications and the evidence seized in Operation Desert Hammer, prosecutors had enough to indict 73 people. The Sinaloa cartel was reeling. Their Arizona operations were crippled, their leadership scattered, their logistics network in shambles. They'd lost nearly $20 million and some of their most experienced operatives. Felix, the specialist sent to kill Rex, made one final attempt. He couldn't return to Mexico without completing his mission. Failure meant death from his own organization. He tracked Rex to a courthouse in Phoenix where Rex was meeting with prosecutors. The building was heavily secured, but Felix was patient. He waited in a parking garage across the street with a high-powered rifle, ready to take the shot when Rex emerged. But Rex had anticipated this. He'd spent 23 years dealing with assassins and knew how they thought. When he left the courthouse, the man who emerged wasn't Rex, but Agent Bradley Dorsey wearing Rex's jacket and hat. The real Rex exited through a side door, having already spotted Felix's position using lessons learned from years of evading cartel hitmen. Local police moved in on Felix's location while Rex watched from safety. Felix saw them coming and tried to escape, but he was surrounded, outgunned, and out of options. He surrendered without firing a shot. In custody, Felix made an interesting choice. Unlike most cartel assassins, he decided to cooperate. Not out of remorse, but out of pragmatism. He was 47 years old, tired of running, tired of killing. He'd worked for the cartel for 25 years and had nothing to show for it except scars and nightmares. He told prosecutors everything about his assignment to kill Rex, about other assassinations he'd carried out, about the cartel's internal structure. His testimony, combined with Morris's and Eduardo's, gave federal prosecutors an unprecedented view into the Sinaloa cartel's operations. The trial began 6 months later in federal court in Phoenix. Rex attended every day, sitting in the gallery with Ashley, watching justice unfold. Morris testified for 3 days, detailing his corruption and cartel connections. Eduardo Vasquez testified for 2 days. Felix testified for 1. The defense tried to discredit them, argued that they were liars trying to save themselves. But the evidence was overwhelming. Financial records, communications intercepts, physical evidence, and photographic documentation. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Morris Hernandez, guilty on all counts, sentenced to 25 years in federal prison. Eduardo Vasquez, guilty on all counts, sentenced to 40 years. Judge Noel Blackwell, guilty of conspiracy and corruption, sentenced to 12 years. Gerald Webster, given a reduced sentence of 8 years for cooperation. Darren Hernandez, who'd cooperated fully and testified against his father, received 5 years probation. 23 other defendants were convicted in related trials over the following months, dismantling the cartel's Arizona operations entirely. Copper Ridge needed to heal. The town had been exposed as a hub for corruption and drug trafficking, its leadership either imprisoned or disgraced. Property values plummeted, businesses closed, and residents struggled with the shame of having lived under such a system for so long. Rex could have left. The threat was over, justice had been served, and there was nothing keeping him in this desert town. But he chose to stay. He rebuilt his ranch house, this time with proper security systems and reinforced construction. Ashley helped with the design, making it feel more like home than the previous structure ever had. They planted trees in the yard, installed solar panels, built a workspace where Rex could consult on legal cases remotely. The state appointed a new sheriff, a woman named Ingrid Ball from Flagstaff with a reputation for integrity and zero tolerance for corruption. She cleaned house, firing every deputy who'd been complicit in Morris's schemes, hiring new officers from outside the county. Slowly, trust began to rebuild. Terry Carroll wrote a comprehensive series about the case for the Arizona Republic, winning a state journalism award. His reporting helped people understand what had happened, how the corruption had taken root, and how Rex's determination had exposed it. He portrayed Rex not as a hero, but as a man who'd simply refused to accept injustice. The story attracted national attention. News outlets across the country covered the sheriff who crossed the wrong man, framing it as a David and Goliath tale of one person standing up to systemic corruption. Rex declined most interview requests, but appeared on 60 Minutes to discuss the broader issue of rural law enforcement corruption. This wasn't unique to Copper Ridge, he told the interviewer. There are Morris Hernandezes in counties across America, small-time tyrants who abuse their authority because oversight is minimal and consequences are rare. We need better systems to identify and remove corrupt officials before they entrench themselves. The segment sparked a congressional hearing on rural law enforcement oversight. Rex testified, recommending reforms, independent review boards, mandatory federal audits of sheriff's departments in small counties, and protections for whistleblowers. Some of his recommendations were implemented in new legislation. Others were blocked by sheriff's associations that feared federal overreach. But the conversation had started, and that mattered. Ashley returned to Arizona State for her sophomore year, changed by the experience. She switched her major from business to criminal justice, inspired by her father's work and her own experience with injustice. She told Rex she wanted to become a prosecutor like he'd been, to fight for people who couldn't fight for themselves. It's a hard road, Rex warned her. You'll make enemies. You'll face threats. You'll see terrible things. I know, but you did it for 23 years. I can do it too. Rex felt immense pride. His daughter had faced trauma and emerged stronger, more determined, more focused on making the world better. That was the greatest victory of all. One afternoon, about a year after Morris's conviction, Rex received an unexpected visitor. Darren Hernandez stood at his door, looking haggard and uncertain. Mr. Rollins, I wanted to apologize. In person, Rex studied the young man. Darren had lost weight, grown a beard, looked older than his 23 years. Probation had humbled him. Come in, Rex said. They sat in Rex's living room, an awkward silence hanging between them until Darren found his voice. I destroyed my father's life because I couldn't handle rejection. Ashley was right to say no. I was a drunk, entitled asshole who thought the world owed me something. I watched my dad go to prison knowing it was my fault. I've had to live with that every day. What are you doing now? Rex asked. Working construction in Tucson. Living in a trailer. Trying to be better. I'm 2 years sober. I'm in therapy. I'm trying to understand why I was the way I was. That's good. Growth requires acknowledging mistakes. My dad asked me to tell you something. He's been writing letters, trying to make amends. He wanted you to know that he understands now. That what he did to Ashley, to you, to everyone else, it was wrong. He said prison gave him time to think about who he'd become. Rex nodded slowly. I believe people can change. But change requires more than words. Your father has 25 years to prove he's different. You have your whole life. I know. That's why I'm here. I wanted Ashley to know I'm sorry. I wanted you to know I'm sorry. And I wanted to ask, do you think there's any chance she'd accept my apology? That's up to her, not me. Darren nodded, understanding. Thank you for seeing me. And thank you for not giving up when my father tried to destroy you. If you had, we'd all still be living a lie. After Darren left, Rex called Ashley at college and told her about the visit. She was quiet for a long moment. Do you believe he's sincere? She asked. I think he's trying to be. Whether that lasts is another question. I don't forgive him yet. Maybe not ever. But I'm glad he's trying to be better. That's fair. Forgiveness isn't owed. It's earned. Copper Ridge slowly transformed. New businesses opened, attracted by low property costs and a community determined to rebuild its reputation. A tech startup opened a small office there, hiring 20 locals. A solar energy company built a facility outside town, employing 30 more. The community center started offering job training and counseling services. Rex played a role in this transformation. He used his connections to bring resources to the town, federal grants for infrastructure improvements, investment from companies looking for rural locations, legal assistance for residents who'd been affected by Morris's corruption. He also established a scholarship fund for Copper Ridge students pursuing careers in law enforcement or criminal justice, stipulating that recipients must complete ethics training and commit to serving communities with integrity. The first recipient was Lou's granddaughter, Daisy Childs, who wanted to become a victim's advocate. On the 2-year anniversary of Ashley's arrest, Rex organized a community gathering in the town square. He wanted to mark not the trauma, but the healing, not the corruption, but the recovery. 200 people attended. Sheriff Ingrid Ball spoke about the progress made in rebuilding trust. Mayor Victoria Pitts, elected in a special election, discussed the town's economic recovery. Terry Carroll presented his journalism award to the community, saying the story belonged to everyone who'd had the courage to speak truth. Rex stood before the gathering and spoke simply. 2 years ago, I came to this town looking for peace. What I found was injustice, but I also found resilience. This community has faced its darkest truth and chosen to grow from it. That takes courage. That takes integrity. Copper Ridge today is better than Copper Ridge was 3 years ago, not because the corruption is gone, but because you all decided it shouldn't define you. The crowd applauded. Ashley, standing beside him, squeezed his hand. After the gathering, as people mingled and children played in the square, an older woman approached Rex. He recognized her as Judith Walters, the retired lawyer who'd first told him about Morris's pattern of corruption. I wanted to thank you, Judith said. I spent 30 years watching Morris hurt people, documenting his abuses and feeling helpless to stop him. You did in weeks what I couldn't do in decades. You gave me the foundation, Rex replied. Your documentation was crucial. You never stopped fighting, even when it seemed hopeless. Judith smiled. I've been a lawyer for 43 years. I've seen a lot of injustice, but I've also seen that sometimes one person willing to stand up can change everything. You were that person for Copper Ridge. That evening, Rex sat on his rebuilt porch watching the desert sunset. Ashley joined him, home for the weekend from college. Dad, do you ever regret staying here? After everything that happened? Rex considered the question. No, I came here looking for peace, but I found purpose instead. Sometimes life puts you exactly where you need to be, even if it's not where you plan to go. I've been thinking about what I want to do after law school. I think I want to work in a place like this. A small community that needs someone who won't back down from corruption. You'd be good at that. I learned from the best. They sat in comfortable silence as the sky turned from orange to purple to black, stars emerging one by one over the desert. In the distance, a coyote howled. Closer, in town, life continued, People living, working, healing. Rex thought about his career, about all the cases and convictions and criminals he'd prosecuted. He'd always believed that justice mattered, that fighting corruption was worth the personal cost. But he'd never expected to have to fight that battle in his retirement, in a small town that was supposed to be his sanctuary. Yet here he was, and he'd won. Not just for himself and Ashley, but for everyone who'd suffered under Morris's regime. That was the measure of a man, not power or wealth or influence, but the willingness to stand up when standing up mattered. Morris Hernandez would spend the next 25 years in federal prison, his reputation destroyed, his legacy one of shame. The Sinaloa cartel's Arizona operations remained crippled years after Operation Desert Hammer. 73 criminals had been convicted, millions in narcotics seized, and an entire trafficking corridor shut down. And Copper Ridge had learned that corruption could be challenged, that authority wasn't absolute, that one person refusing to accept injustice could change everything. 3 years after the trial, on Ashley's graduation day from law school, Rex received a letter. It was from Morris, written from his prison cell in Colorado. Mr. Rollins, I've had a lot of time to think about who I was and what I did. You were right. I confuse fear with respect, power with authority. I hurt innocent people, including your daughter, because I believe my badge made me untouchable. I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it, but I wanted you to know that what you did, exposing my corruption, dismantling our operation, ensuring justice was served, was necessary. I hated you for it at the time. Now I'm grateful. Prison has forced me to confront the person I became. I volunteer in the prison education program, helping other inmates prepare for life after release. It's not much, but it's something. It's a chance to do good instead of harm. Ashley rejected Darren's advances. That should have been the end of it. Instead, I try to destroy her life. I will regret that until the day I die. Please tell her I'm sorry. Not because it changes anything, but because it's true. You're a better man than I ever was. Thank you for showing Copper Ridge and me what real integrity looks like. Morris Hernandez. Rex read the letter twice, then filed it away. He believed in redemption, but he also believed it had to be earned through years of consistent change, not one letter from prison. Morris had 2 decades to prove his transformation was real. Ashley graduated top of her class, received multiple job offers from prestigious firms and government agencies. She chose the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Arizona, following in her father's footsteps. I want to prosecute cases like yours, she told Rex. I want to take down people who abuse power and hurt the vulnerable. I want to be the person who stands up when everyone else is too scared. You will be, Rex said. You already are. On her first day as an assistant U.S. attorney, Ashley handled her first case, a corruption case against a city councilman in Yuma who'd been taking bribes from developers. She won the conviction after a 3-day trial. That evening, she called Rex. Dad, I get it now. Why you did this for 23 years. The feeling when you get justice for someone who's been wronged. It's incredible. Don't let it consume you, Rex warned. I made that mistake. I spent so many years fighting that I forgot how to live. Find balance. Take care of yourself. I will. I promise. Rex returned to Copper Ridge and his quiet life, consulting on cases occasionally, but mostly enjoying the peace he'd originally sought. He'd proven he could still fight when necessary, still bring down corrupt officials and criminal organizations. But he'd also proven he could build community, build trust, build a better future. The town erected a small memorial in the square, honoring not Rex, but all the people who'd been harmed by Morris's corruption. 17 names were engraved on a stone monument, a reminder that power without accountability inevitably led to abuse. Rex attended the dedication ceremony, standing quietly in the back while Sheriff Ingrid Ball spoke about the importance of remembering difficult truths. Afterward, people approached him to shake his hand, to thank him, to tell him their stories of how Morris had affected them. One man, Pablo Glenn, the auto shop owner Morris had falsely accused years ago, gripped Rex's hand with tears in his eyes. I lost my business, my reputation, everything because I wouldn't let Darren drive drunk. I thought I'd never get justice. Thank you for proving me right, for proving we were all right. Rex nodded, understanding. This was why he'd fought. Not for glory or recognition, but for people like Pablo who'd been hurt by a system designed to protect them. As the sun set over Copper Ridge that evening, Rex stood in his yard and reflected on the journey. He'd come here seeking peace and found war. He'd faced corruption, cartel assassins, and a system designed to protect the guilty. He lost his home, risked his life, and dragged his daughter into danger. But he'd won. Ashley was safe, thriving, building her own career fighting injustice. Morris was in prison where he belonged. The cartel's operations were destroyed. Copper Ridge was healing. Rex Rollins had spent 23 years as a federal prosecutor putting away criminals. Then he'd spent 2 years as a retired citizen doing the same thing. The badge and title didn't matter. What mattered was standing up for what was right when everyone else was too intimidated to act. He went inside, poured himself a bourbon, and sat on his couch. Tomorrow he'd wake up and tend his ranch, maybe ride out to the canyon and watch the sun rise, continue living the quiet life he'd always wanted. But tonight, he allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. He'd crossed paths with a corrupt sheriff who thought power made him untouchable. Morris had been wrong. Authority without integrity was just tyranny, and tyranny always fell when challenged by someone unwilling to bend. Rex Rollins had been that someone, and Copper Ridge was better for it. The desert wind whistled outside, carrying the scent of sage and creosote. In the distance, coyotes sang their evening song. Life continued, as it always did, in the spaces between drama and quiet, between conflict and peace. Rex raised his glass to the empty room, to everyone who'd helped bring justice to this small desert town, to his daughter who'd survived trauma and emerged stronger, to the future that was somehow brighter than the past. To standing up, he said quietly. Then he drank and smiled, and let the peace he'd earned finally settle over him like a blanket. The fight was over. Justice had been served, and Rex Rollins could finally rest.
This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel. That would help me a lot. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.